So, as part of our discussion of flash fiction this week, I thought that I would read a piece of flash fiction that I had published and that will be forthcoming in my book, The Year of the Monster. This particular piece runs at 932 words, I think. And so I'd like to read it and then briefly discuss why this piece is flash, why I didn't write a longer piece, etc. So we will be reading Bending Genres later on this semester. That's the website that I'm on right now, if I kind of scroll on this website. So Blood Histories is in their 12th issue, and I will read it for you. At one point in history, there was a girl who saved herself from history. How pretty she was is not important. Which of her parents sent her out into the world? Inconsequential. What does matter is that she did the opposite of what she had always wanted, because what she had always wanted was going to kill her. Here, let us explain. Desire kills many women. It is the disease of her gender. This, her mother did tell her, but only because the girl's mother had wanted to be a pediatrician and, lucky for her, fell pregnant during medical school and never had to touch a sick child she couldn't possibly save. Such disappointment and helplessness would have triggered her metaphorical death, which everyone knows precedes a woman's bodily death. Do what I have done, her mother said, and you too can overcome. It wasn't just the girl's mother who tried to trick her with history. When she was 14 years old, the girl's anatomy teacher had told her that a woman's blood holds all of the trauma of the past preceding her past, really, of all time. And try as they might, physiologists and alienists and etiologists and evangelists had not been able to figure out how to cure the woman's body of its memory disease. Because of this, the teacher explained, a woman is genetically predisposed to self-destruct. For the record, the girl, now woman, young woman, was smarter than the physiologists and the alienists and the etiologists and the evangelists, because she had discovered that history was created, not innate, and that it was the world that had injected its fatal ideas into her blood. The girl, now a young woman, had made the discovery when she told Declan Seeger she wasn't a virgin. She thought that telling him this would have made him less eager, more understanding. And so afterward, she decided that the beautiful dream from 3 nights before Declan pinned her down in his mother's Range Rover, the dream where she and Khalid Monopolo made love in an electrical storm near Sedona, was her real first time. She decided that Declan Seeger would not write her history, that while memory was beyond her control to modify, she did have perspective. And isn't that what history really was? A pronouncement of potentially oblique perspective. So what was the desire that would try to lead the young woman towards her death? Well, it's simple. The young woman wanted to avoid making the world angry by doing all the things it beseeched her to do, the foremost prerequisite being needing to be saved from danger. And if she wasn't in danger, to get into it as quickly as possible. Climb in like a man into a dinghy, row to the middle of the ocean, burn the oars, set the whole boat on fire, really. Do what she needed to do to become as helpless as she needed to become to require saving. So how did she save herself from the self that the blood poison tried to make her become? She became a physiologist, she became an alienist, she became an etiologist, she became an evangelist. And when she became all the things that had told her what she would become, she stopped becoming things altogether and bought a yacht. And she steered that yacht into the middle of the Gulf of Mexico, where one day she sighted something obsidian cresting against the divine intersection of sea and cloudless sky. As she sailed nearer to it, the spot grew larger and less abstract. At a distance of 1 nautical mile, the young woman knew the spot to be a yacht-sized hole in the otherwise idyllic seascape. One might have expected the young woman to turn around, to flee the hole because it was dark and unlikely and possessed the unknown, which could put her success at risk. But the young woman, who was not so young anymore, recognized the yacht-sized hole as true danger, not the one the world had urged her to find, and that this was just what she had been looking for. So the young physio-alien evangelist pressed enthusiastically onward, right into that darkness, because she was certain that another woman, young, old, purple, brown, peril is indiscriminate, was in there, and that, having saved herself, from self-destruction, from the world's fatal ideas and false blood histories, she could teach that woman how to really overcome. So I want to thank you for letting me read you this piece first off. I don't usually teach my work to students, but I was trying to think creatively how to talk about flash fiction, which is a genre that I've been writing a lot of in the last 2 years. Much of my early writing career was much longer pieces, everything from scripts to a novel that I tabled and I'm not working on anymore, to these flash pieces. And what really draws me to flash and what I was working with here is, as you can see, it has a lot of fairy tale elements. Starting at the beginning, instead of once upon a time, we have at one point in history. And using the word history, tying into the title and what is history and who records history and who's in charge of history. And that kind of precipitated into this history as kind of something genetic in a way. I was reading a lot about how trauma is passed on genetically, especially they did some studies with Holocaust victims and how the trauma is actually genetically passed on. And I started, addressing the question of, well, what if bad ideas were genetic? And not that that can be proven. I mean, bad ideas are what bad ideas are, but I started rolling with that and thinking about, a lot of the common tropes of fairy tales and how would you rewrite this once upon a time there was a girl who was saved by a man. Once upon a time there was a girl who saved herself from herself was a line that came out. And then I started thinking about what is that? What are the kinds of trappings that come with one's own peril? And so as a young woman, a lot of it is meeting the expectations of society and playing certain roles, and people in positions of power coercing her to believe in her own powerlessness. So mothers being part of that, her teacher being part of that, and then the scientific specialists who come in. So when it comes to flash, right, plot is wrapped up really quickly. So I played a lot with how I could create pauses for specific moments, like with her mother, and then with this idea that she could choose who she lost her virginity to as opposed to the boy who sexually assaulted her, and kind of showing how she tries to write her own story. So history and blood and story all go together here. And then at the end, that she can become all of these experts and that it doesn't really matter. She didn't need to become anything anymore. And that this idea of going into a boat is her way of going out into the world and trying to lead people to their true identity, right? As opposed to the false blood history. So I like to think of fairy tales and those kinds of stories as being, or I guess I should say, and I'm sorry, if I had tons of time, I would re-record this lecture so that it was perfect and I wasn't stumbling all over myself. But I guess it makes it more human. But thinking about, what we've talked about with fairy tales are often associated with flash because you cut out a lot of the character and you flatten the character. And so I wanted to toy with that idea of the flat character and making the flat character more robust, but still being able to work within the parameters of flash. In fairy tale, you have a lot of action and a lot of plot. Well, if I'm going to make a more robust character and give, her some insights and give her some character interaction that is specific, then have to sacrifice elements of plot. And that's where the flash can sometimes look like an accordion. And that's what this is here, is there's moments of protraction where we pull it apart, where she's thinking about Declan Seeger, and the parts that compress, which are at the beginning. And a lot of it also incorporates this idea of kind of the essay. There's sort of an essay feel to it at the beginning of like, this is what happens, let me tell you. Desire kills many women, right? It is the disease of their gender. And then attributing that to her mother. But thinking about flash as an accordion that can suspend a moment, and sometimes the entire flash is the suspension of that moment. If you think about Accident by Dave Eggers, which we've read in class, either last week or this week, I think it was last week, sorry. They all run together. But that particular story is this moment after a car accident, right? Where the driver has where the driver has an expectation that there's going to be violence and that the teenagers are going to be angry and that teenagers are a certain way, and then suddenly he realizes that he's relieved he didn't kill them, and then there's this like really strong emotion of connection, right? That was unexpected. And that's another thing that Flash does is it creates a moment of it uses surprise, which is usually, I wouldn't say just irony, but it's characters reacting in an unexpected way, and then the reader having an unexpected emotion. So, in a fairy tale where a girl is being told that her desire is going to kill her, and that her desire to want to please everybody and to fit into the mold that's been created for her across history, to then show that she can find her own sense of identity and use that for empowerment was kind of what I was playing with there. So thank you for letting me have the chance to read it to you. And if you have any questions for me, feel free to reach out. And I appreciate you guys doing the best that you can during this time that we have being quarantined and online and whatnot. But I'm really proud of you guys for your very intelligent responses to all of the prompts. Thank you.